book it in.
Okay, let's move swiftly on to best gameplay. Take us through the nominees again. Yep.
So nominated in this category, we have Gears of War Ultimate Edition, Death's Door, Resident Evil Village, Halo Infinite, Super Mario Galaxy, Doom 64, Portal 2, and Super Mario World.
So that's why you put Doom 64 in it.
Other than that last boss, I think that game holds up incredibly well. The problem is...
Agreed.
The problem is that I played Doom 64. Does it matter? Like, you'll know the answer to this. Like, how do we need to consider the fact that the N64 controller exists and it
I played
was
it
on
with
that? Did you on this release?
Wait, no, I didn't.
I played mine on
I
my
played
Xbox.
it on Xbox.
Yeah,
me too.
and I'm not sure how well it would feel on that with that controller, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I think it would do the old GoldenEye C button strafing.
Mm-hmm.
Potentially,
which it may well do. I
don't think you're not doing a lot of aiming and looking up and down because it was all auto aim, wasn't it? So I don't think that would have hampered it too much. I probably could have managed it.
I've always sort of had a tertiary appreciation for the Doom games, but it wasn't until, and there's a running theme throughout a lot of these games in this list in which I'd sort of either ignored or not paid much attention to and then come back to at a later date. But having been made to play this game, it made me realise how much I absolutely love the Doom games. I went back and played Doom 1 and 2. Oh, look at that, baby. Doom 64. On cart.
Still in the wrapper. I haven't even opened it. Sorry, carry on.
I absolutely adore the Doom games, and I just think, like, for their time, it is unbelievable how well these games hold up in a world in which we have thousands of tens, a lot of games coming out every year, and 99% of them don't hold up as well as Doom and Doom 64 and Doom 2, maybe not Doom 3, but
yeah, maybe not.
I just think it's unbelievable. It's the same with Super Mario World. Like, these games are better than most games that come out based on their gameplay loop.
Yeah, definitely.
And
Mario, like I said to you, I think I said it all the time. Mario World is as close to a perfect video game as you can ever get.
Mm-hmm.
Other than Tetris, which you totally gazumped me with last time. I just can't argue against Tetris being the perfect game. Yeah, you're absolutely right, though. Considering Doom 64 is a game that you and I played for the first time this year, being big fans of Doom, and maybe even came away from it thinking it was almost better than those two.
I think certainly, yeah. I think, like, if you were to hold a gun to my head, which is the best game, I think I'd still plot for Doom, but I think
definitely Doom 1.
Doom 64 has aged way better than 1 and 2, and not way better.
Yeah, which is madness, because considering this was seen as like it was Midway that made it, and it was on a different, it was...
Randy Pitchford, I think, had something to do with this game.
God.
I don't know if that makes
That's
it worse.
upsetting.
Yeah. Or is it Randy? I'm going to have to look that up and qualify that.
All right, you do that.
I know he did the port for Half-Life, but then that's nothing to do with this game.
Oh, right, okay. But yeah, I mean, it was on a Nintendo console. It wasn't actual Doom, so this might be the only Doom game in that entire period from 93 to, I don't remember when this came out, 98 or 97. You got a 4-year span of every time a Doom game is on any new platform, it's Doom or Doom 2. But this wasn't. It was its own thing, and it's nuts to think that the N64 got its own version of Doom when everybody else had just been porting it. It was on the PlayStation, it was on the SNES, it was on the Mega Drive or the Mega CD or 32X or whatever the fuck. It was on the Saturn, it was on the PC. And then all of a sudden you get Doom 64 and it's not the original Doom, just ported over.
Yeah.
And arguably feels better to play.
I can't find
Albeit, if you play the original, apparently it's the darkest game ever. So again, we were very lucky that we played the Xbox version.
Yeah.
Because I think I remember when Angry Video Game Nerd covered this game, he said he had to turn the contrast on his TV all the way, or the brightness on his TV all the way up, and he still could barely ever see where he was going.
Oh, really?
Yeah. Right, I'm gonna just keep that ready because you've made a very compelling point. We've probably already talked. In Mario World, we just kind of said it anyway. It's basically perfection. It's platforming at its absolute peak. So we'll keep that bolded as well.
That has possibly never been done better since. Or
before not even by them.
No. I want to. So, in an effort to sort of kick this on, I want to. This is one. So, like, my top two were slapped in. So my top two in this are Super Mario World and Doom 64. They were absolutely in there. Death's Door is another one that was in there for me, and Gears of War Ultimate Edition was another one that I kind of wanted in, but it came and went. Another one that came and went on this list while I was sort of doing it and redoing it was Super Mario Galaxy. And I'd actually, when we're talking about like gameplay perfection and things not being done better, that I'd like to offer that up to being cut, because I remember we had fairly extensive discussions about the camera in this game not working very well, which is a gameplay feature. So I think it has to go. Like, moving around in that world is fun, and it's an absolute dream when it works. But the camera angle being annoying, and when you're going around like those spherical sort of orb things, and then like you would be running, and then you would just change direction, even though you hadn't changed direction on the stick. I think that has to knock it out of a top 5. It has to.
Yeah, that game has a lot of highlights in it. Potentially as well for like 90% of it, the game's quite easy.
Yep.
And I think I would still probably hang my hat on the notion that I prefer the second one.
Yeah.
And I don't want 2 Mario games in the top 3. And it's not better than Mario World, so...
No, it's not. And I actually want to say, I don't know if this is controversial or not. I think if you take the series as a whole, I think it's maybe got the worst selection of suits that I'm thinking of off the top of my head. I can't think of many suits that I really liked in that were like not the.
I didn't mind the
ones.
ice one.
The ice
one. I don't care for the B one.
The B was awful. The B is.
You hated the spring one as well.
The spring one can get bent. Yeah, the spring one can absolutely do one.
Spring one can get curled, coiled.
Yeah, so let's get Mario Galaxy out there.
Did we only have one game other than Mario World that we agree on, and that's Death's Door, right?
Yeah,
which is weird because we both put it right near the bottom, but usually we always give extra points to bump it up to a game that we've both included. I think it's because
there's some absolute stormers in this list. I think this is like one of the most difficult categories. Like looking at our different stuff we've got. To me, this is one of the most difficult categories because there are so many games that play well. I mean, like games that didn't even make it onto this list that are now like Final Station. It plays well.
Yeah.
What else have we got? Halo.
I mean, Streets of Rage, absolute classic.
Halo Infinite. Yeah, Streets of Rage. Rogue Legacy is another game that plays well for what it does. There's lots of games on this list that I think play well.
Sonic the Hedgehog.
Yeah. I mean, even that, it does what it sets out to do.
Yeah, I mean, Max Payne was pretty influential for things like Bullet Time.
Mm-hmm.
We even said that Days Gone's gameplay is the only reason we carried on.
Yeah.
Because the loop was just great and we really enjoyed it.
Controversially, like Parasite Eve maybe isn't the best playing game, but gameplay-wise it is doing things that are interesting and engaging. Like that fighting mechanic's fantastic. And I don't know why they didn't do it more in that type of game.
It was like Chrono Trigger, but a survival horror game. And because of that, it really, really worked in 2021.
Yeah, absolutely.
Better than any of the old Resident Evil games. I think we said that at the time, didn't we? Like, it's better than all the tanky control bullshit of that.
Definitely. Yeah, and it's from that era, isn't it?
Yeah. It's a PlayStation game.
Tell me why the gameplay is good in Resident Evil Village, because I think that's maybe one of the worst bits of it.
Really? Those guys just know how to do a third-person shooting mechanic, I think. I don't necessarily... Oh, it was first-person, wasn't it? What am I on about?
So, like, yeah, I'll qualify that. It's not terrible. I just felt like a lot of the guns didn't hold much weight to them when you're firing them. They didn't feel hefty and powerful. And the section where I think it's funny, the section on the ship, no, this is Village, the section where you're Chris Redfield running through shooting all the things. Like,
oh yeah, Call of
that is,
Redfield.
yeah, like if that's it's a first, that bait is basically a first person shooter. So like, what is best in class for that? Apex, Call of Duty. It's nowhere near as good as those.
No.
And maybe it's unfair to compare them to it. It probably is unfair because it's a different engine. It's shooting for different things, but in that moment, in that area, it's trying to be a first person shooter, and it's just not a very good one. It's funny.
I did forget about that when I added that in there. And the puzzles are a bit weak. I just felt like it gave itself this stamp of being like a modern Resident Evil 4, and I felt that it nailed what it set out to do, and also had a bit more of that terror involved with it, with the the big giant vampire woman chasing you about. Puzzle wise, I think it was quite weak for a Resident Evil game, so on that I would definitely be happy at that. And the Redfield of Duty, I would happily cut it.
Okay,
because I'm going to bring it up again later anyway, probably multiple times.
Unfortunately I because it's number 5 on my list and it's not on the list
but
at all.
I've been looking at this and thinking maybe I should have put it on there.
So I don't know. I guess I'll give you my argument and you can decide, because, well, we can decide rather. I just think like Gears of War, in terms of sort of that gameplay loop for third person, what's like sort of chest high wall shooter. That was so revolutionary at its time, and it is just like, again, like sort of on the Doom 64 note, like or the Doom note or the Super Mario World note, like it's still good and it still is fun to engage with the mechanics. It is simple, and it doesn't really change itself in any way. I guess like what you're doing at the start of the game is ostensibly what you're doing at the end of the game, and there's no sort of like. Mario World will change up the levels and make you do different things. Doom 64, because I'm trying to think on the fly, I'm trying to think, but like Super Mario Galaxy, for example, is a game that always leaves you thinking, and it'll give you like sections of like unique gameplay, and then you'll never see it again. Gears of War does none of that. The thing you do in the first level is the thing you're doing all the way through to the end, and it's a testament, I guess, to how fun it is that never gets boring to me. I don't know. I never would have considered myself one, but maybe I'm quite a shooter guy, because like looking back on like my favorite games over this year, and games that when we were like behind the scenes discussion, like I was always suggesting shooters.
Yeah.
Maybe that's just what I like, and in terms of shooters, this is one of the best, I think, and it's one of my favorite series. And still is, even though it's now old and long in the tooth. And the games are, what are we now on? Is it 5 we've had now? 5 main line games, at least,
plus Judgment.
But it's still as good as ever. But
there's a reason that franchise has probably never really evolved. Because it was so perfect the first time around. Yeah,
so I wonder.
It's just so visceral and meaty and manly.
Chainsawing someone in half is still fun. Absolutely.
Sniping them, amazing sniper rifle.
I wonder, like, so how do you think this compares to Halo Infinite? Because I actually think, if I'm honest, the moment-to-moment gameplay in Halo is probably better than the moment-to-moment in Gears of War Ultimate Edition. I
mean, it's more than 10 years after the fact, so there's that. 15 years after the fact, I think.
But I think both of us would agree, and this is the thing that I can't quite, because I could go either way on this, I'm interested in your opinion, is both of us talked about how by the end of Halo we were getting a bit bored of it. But we weren't bored by the shooting mechanics. I
certainly wasn't bored by the gameplay. I was bored by the variety of...
the lack of variety in the setting and the way in which the game wants you to move around.
Yeah.
And I guess that's
but in terms of me...
Is that gameplay?
Yeah, I guess it is.
Like what makes Red to me... Like,
level design, I guess. But that grappling hook plus the classic Halo shooting style, which is they've basically honed now to a T.
Yeah.
I think there are very few first-person shooters that feel as good to play as that did, other than maybe Apex. I can't think of anything else.
Mm-hmm.
Overwatch, maybe. But, like, I would never want to play a Call of Duty or Battlefield game instead of Halo.
Mm-hmm.
That Halo, anyway. But I don't know. I mean, it was basically just Halo for, like, the 8th time, but with a grappling hook this time in a big open world. And the open world does have to be included in the gameplay, and the loop and the map box ticking exercise and all that stuff kind of needs to be factored in.
I'm trying to think of like trying to narrow this list down. Like I don't know if it obviously doesn't win, but I'm quite keen to try and get Death's Door at least beyond this next run. Like I just think what it does is so tight and fun, and like the boss fights are challenging, but I was never angry at them. Moving around the world and just sort of engaging with that fighting mechanics and the variety for such a simple, straightforward-ish game. The variety that you can employ in terms of play style. I think we even encountered it when we were watching each other play. We just played very differently. Whether you were like and the variety in bosses as well. I like towards the end. I was thinking when you've essentially got to go and refight all the bosses again. Like there was that the massive crow that you had to fight was just unlike anything else that you'd encountered in the game. So at least on to the next round, I would like to get it. Which means I
kind of feel like it should maybe stay in the top 3, because if we're talking about, I mean, it's okay. You can talk about its originality in the terms of, well, it's kind of like an isometric Souls-like Metroidvania kind of thing, but at the same time, we've got a third-person shooter, which was the first in the franchise, but in a franchise that's never really changed. You've got like the 8th Halo game, you've got the 8th Resident Evil game, you've got like a Doom sequel, you've got a Mario sequel. So, you know, I feel like for originality purposes, it should probably stick around, because we both also really liked it. And from 2021, that's probably the best gameplay from this year.
Yeah.
Like from this actual year.
Yep. I think like looking at of the games, I always kept coming back to, and I kept tripping myself up when we were going like through games we played this year of 2020 games that were released in 2021. It's definitely top 3, perhaps top. I would need to think about it a bit more, I think. But yeah, it's definitely up there. I absolutely loved.
Doesn't outstay its welcome either.
No.
And it was, I think the only thing that it probably didn't completely nail was like the character upgrades that seemed a bit arbitrary.
I think. Does this mean we need? Oh, they were funny as well. That pothead was pretty good.
Oh yeah. I think we have to have it in everywhere.
Here. In the witch, like even like fighting the witch was fun.
Yeah, it was really good.
It had the variety, and if we're talking about like Halo and stuff, because I think the environmental design, every place you went to was so different.
Yeah.
I think
it had a grappling hook as well, didn't it?
Yeah. I think as much as I love it, just by default, then Gears has probably got to go.
Okay.
It just has to, because to me it just doesn't.
I'm going to cut Halo as well then. Okay,
so one game we haven't really spoken about Super Mario World, but we've not touched on Portal 2. Do you want to give us this is sitting at number 2 on your list. Do you want to give us the thinking behind this?
I think as a sequel, in terms of sequels of games that I can think off the top of my head, I don't think I've ever really played one that expanded on its original. Granted, the original was like a throwaway thing that some dudes did on a lunch break or whatever. So they actually just kind of fleshed it out. But I think everything they added to Portal 2 that wasn't in Portal 1 was fantastic. Like the gels that you were bouncing on, the anti-grav stuff, all the stuff that they added I thought was fantastic. And it's a game that ramps up its difficulty as you get in really innovative ways that never ever feel like it's repeating itself, and the game obviously makes you feel really clever. There's nothing really else like it.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually quite surprised that you didn't put this in here for yourself. I know that it's obviously not hit the same heights for you as it did the first time around, but I've definitely felt, other than the fact that it's kind of a bit slow and it's 30 FPS,
Mm-hmm.
from a, at its core, this game is still so unlike anything else and so satisfying when you get things right.
Yeah.
That that's why it was my personal number 2, because I still absolutely love to play it.
I found, and it probably says more about me than the game, but because it's like the second time we had played through it, I still got lost in that game. Once you leave the sort of sterile test chamber area, it gives the game more character, and I think it's better for it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I think, and I found sometimes just moving around, I would get lost and I wasn't quite sure where to go. But in a way, maybe I'm talking myself round, because it did mean that when you figured out where to go, it sometimes felt like you were getting one over the game, which obviously you weren't.
Yeah, it did a lot of like, you're out the back of all the test chambers, aren't you? Like, especially in the chase sequences or whatever with Wheatley. I just think that when you find that 70s style, older version of the Aperture Labs,
Mm-hmm.
the amount of new stuff it throws at you after so many hours of just going through the same thing is so good. And then when Wheatley starts trying to make the chambers at the end to try and get one over you, but they're always like kind of broken or don't really work.
So do you think, in terms of based on pure variety, I guess because we're both agreed that this game does what it sets out to do excellently well, and the puzzles work and handle well, and if you don't manage to do a puzzle, you never feel like the controls are letting you down, which obviously is vitally important for a category like this. Do you think, in terms of pure variety, it beats Doom 64 then, because Doom 64 is so one note?
Yeah,
I think I can see that argument, which gives us our final 3 then, I think, if I'm looking at this list correctly. Oh no, we haven't. We've got to speak about Super Mario World, don't we?
What do we need to say?
It's just the perfect platformer. Like, there's no better platformer. Oodles of variety, and for a game of that age, like, I had to look up a guide at one moment because I actually had never quite grasped the importance of the keys the secret keys and stuff. I don't think
you finished that part of it, did you? The whole Star World stuff.
No, I didn't. So, like, on the face of it, it seems like a linear game where you just go from level to level, but it's not at all. Not at all.
No.
And it just
secret exits and stuff. Yeah.
And it's my favorite. I think I say it every time we start talking about a Mario game, but my absolute favorite thing about these games is that this one isn't actually true, because there's a bit where you've got to find a secret key or you can't progress. But for the most part in Mario games, if you just want to get through it, you can get through it fairly easily with the odd bit of challenge. But then if you really want to sort of dive in deep and pull this game apart, they're rock solid in places. And this one, this one is the same as that.
Yeah.
And there's a reason
this is
why.
One of the hardest ones, I think. This and Mario 3, I think, are the 2 hardest.
Yeah, I just don't think. I think you'd be hard pushed if if you're having a discussion with someone about what is the best game ever made. If this was their favorite game ever, you might disagree with them, but you couldn't really say you're talking rubbish.
No, exactly. It should be in somewhere in everybody's like top 10, I think.
I think it's probably no surprise that both Alex and I had this as our number 1 game, so I think it wins by default.
Yeah, I think so too. And then I'm happy to have Portal 2 as number 3, because we both agreed on the other one as well.
Yeah, Death's Door and Portal 2. So the winner of Best Gameplay of 2021 in the winner's view is Super Mario World, with runners-up Death's Door and Portal 2.